Hello, people of the World Wide Interweb. Today on the workbench we have this beautiful, still mechanical, but battery-powered clock. And so instead of it being driven by a spring or weights like the typical clocks that I work on, this guy here has a snaky little battery down in the bottom. There is a few little issues with this clock that are holding it back from its full potential. One being that the cradle that holds the battery, when I first received it, there was so much corrosion on there, and you could see that white fuzz. A battery leaked all over the place, so I can't leave that like that. So I'm going to take this apart and get all that corrosive gunk out of there. The electronics seem good, so I don't have to touch that. But yeah, the brass all over the place is very tarnished. Look at that. This was a gift to someone. Imperial Oil Limited. If anyone knows who that is, there I got their clock. So and the year is stamped in 1980, so it just gives you an idea of what the age is. That being said, let's get into it. First order of operations, remove the battery and get the glass out of there. Put it aside, put it somewhere nice and safe, and then continue the disassembly. Now in a moment here, you're going to see me do a cardinal error, and that is just letting the pendulum do whatever the heck it wants. And yeah, it ended up costing me $50, and I was lucky that my local clock repair shop actually had the part in stock. The part that broke was the suspension spring that holds the pendulum in place. So if you look on the back of the clock here, there's actually a bolt that runs right through that will hold the pendulum in place when you need to move the clock around. I highly suggest you use that as much as possible. Now I'm just going to quickly take apart the movement itself, and I did slow it down for people who want to learn how to put it back together on the reassembly. So on the left we have Autosol, and on the right we have a product called Brasso. And I wanted to see which one worked better for this stage, and Brasso was definitely the better product for removing the oxidization and all the discoloration. But I still use the Autosol as a final polish. You'll see that some parts are polished and some parts are brushed. And so it's important to not use the Jeweler's Rouge on the brushed portions of the brass. Over here for this, beautiful. Bring that shine out. Make it look like it came out of the factory. And later on, I didn't take video of it because it's winter out right now, and I shot some lacquer on all of the exposed surfaces just to keep that nice shine for a little bit longer. This is the terminals for the battery tray, and I left just the terminals in some vinegar overnight. And what that did is it has exposed all of the bare copper and cleaned all of that corrosion. Now, what I'm doing here is very carefully flooding the surface with tin, and that will stop oxidization that would have naturally happened on the copper and eventually stop the clock from working. And yeah, put some needle noses right where you need a heat sink, because if I didn't have those needle noses there, that would just fall apart. The lead solder on the PCB would just melt and everything would just fall right to the ground. So this piece of polycarbonate, you probably don't want to use anything too abrasive on there because that will scratch. But I just used some Windex type cleaner, something with a little bit of ammonia in it, and it does a great job just shining up all that glass and eating away all that grease and grime. And now for the reassembly of the case. You can slide that glass back in after we have the corner posts screwed back on. And now we reassemble the movement. And I did have better footage from my microscope, but can I find it? Nope. I probably deleted it with other files I did not want. So my apologies on that one. My bad. But this movement is pretty straightforward. You know, obviously as soon as you take off one of the front or the back covers off of it, just snap a quick picture before you pull all those wheels out and you'll have a good idea of where to put them back. Using a little dental tool to get all of those pivots back in their homes. Very good tool to have on hand. Making sure that all of the wheels move freely before you tighten your screws. Let that be a lesson. Make sure they move freely, because if not, you got one pinched, and if you tighten down those screws, you will break a pivot, and then you're really up the creek without a paddle. Two tiny little stainless steel washers right under there. Oh, forgot to put some oil. And just like that, the movement is back together. I had some Mobius 8000 on hand, so that's actually what I'm using for those small little pivots, because I promise you these are the same size as a size 18 pocket watch. So I figure, well, might as well use it. I've got it. And besides, those tools are a little bit better for getting into a small spot than, you know, big oiler you'd use on a mantel clock. A portion of this pendulum rod is threaded, and that allows the pendulum to be adjusted up and down, and that's how you get your clock in beat. And so what I did is I counted each rotation all the way up to the top of the rod where it stopped, and in my case it was 15.5 turns. And so it was safe for me to take everything apart, and when I reassembled it back together, there was no issue, and the clock keeps perfect time. Time for the hands. The hour hand gets pushed on quite easily, and then there is a small nut that goes underneath of the minute hand, and then another one that goes over top of the minute hand. The minute hand gets sandwiched in there and creates enough friction that it holds everything in place. It's interesting, I've never seen this before. Laying the clock down on its back like this is probably what broke the suspension spring. So, yeah, tough pill to swallow, but we are always learning something new here, and I had never worked on a clock like this before. So, luckily I was able to find the part and fix this old clock up. This concludes the restoration of this beautiful electromagnetic clock. One thing I did want to point out is under here there is the magnet that makes everything work. And if you remember in the starting of the video, it was all bananaed, and so what I did to remedy that is I put a hose clamp around the whole thing and filled the inside with silver solder, and that held it together. From there I just took it over to the buffing wheel and cleaned everything. And so until I get an extra one to replace it, it looks pretty decent for now, and I'm happy with it. If you enjoy this type of content, consider subscribing or give me a thumbs up. That always helps the channel out. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.